So, hi, can you see me? I'm sorry for the delay. We were solving some technical issues. You have been waiting for some minutes, but I'm here. Just let me know in the chat if you're still there and if you can see me and hear me well. We have been going through a little bit of stress right now. But well, this is also part of life, and this is why I like to do these live streams in the lettering grid, because okay, yeah, you can see me. Awesome, awesome. This is great news. So yeah, we had some hiccups in the beginning of the live streams. Thank you so much for waiting. Welcome everyone to the lettering grid. For those out there, let me know where you're joining from. Oh, so many of you out there. Thank you so much for joining. So welcome to the lettering grid. Let me explain you shortly what this lettering grid is about. For those that were on the previous lettering grid, you know what this is all about, and it is awesome. So for those that are joining now for the first time, the lettering grid is essentially a critique round on selected projects. What we will be doing here is I will be giving feedback. I will be writing feedback on these projects, and you will be helping me to give feedback through the chat. So all of you people joining from California, Argentina, Brazil, so all of you will help me give feedback on this project. So please open your eyes, think with me what you want to say about each one of the projects. Remember that the lettering grid is not about critiquing the work. It's not about crashing the work that we are looking at. It's actually about giving constructive feedback. So the person and praise, of course, everything you like about it, you can also mention it. But it's about, giving the person who did the work some roadmap on what's next, what they could improve and what they can change in their work to make it look a lot better. So that's all. I think we can start. I received a lot of submissions. I had to select between hundreds of submissions. So I selected, I think, 4 projects here. Some of them are lettering projects. Some of them are type design projects. So this edition of the lettering grid is the display type special, because it's a lettering grid that is anticipating what is coming next, which is the launch of Letter & Co., my next course in type design. So in this lettering grid, I wanted to give you a little bit of a taste of what this course is about. And also, I wanted to show you how connected the lettering, doing lettering and doing type design can be, and how actually those that do only lettering can also sort of use type design to turn their letter shapes into fonts. So let's start. Are you with me? So I'm gonna share my screen right now. Let me go to share my screen. So let me go here. Okay, wait. So I'm gonna work on my iPad right here. There we go. Oh, okay. Okay. So let me go on. Let me know on the chat if you can see my the screen of my iPad. Can you see the screen of my iPad? I hope you can. So the first submission that I'm gonna speak about is the one from Anna Michelle. Let me see. I'm not sure you can actually see. Okay, yeah, you can see it. Okay, I can see it now. So the first submission I'm gonna speak about is from Anna Michelle. So Anna Michelle has been working essentially in an alphabet. You can see it here. And I think something very characteristic about the work she's doing right now is that she is placing the weight for the letters at the top and at the bottom of her letters. So you can see very clearly how this sort of draws a line right? At the top part and at the bottom part. So she's consistently placing the weight of her letters on those, at the top and at the bottom. And this is what makes it all look like a family. This is what makes all the letters look like a family, like they belong together. So this is a great start already. You know, achieving consistency or finding consistency within your letter shapes or within your alphabet has a lot to do with that, to make one decision or a few decisions that are really strong and that you can apply to all the letters. So this is what Anna is doing here, and I think she's doing it really good. So let me know on the chat what you think about the project. What are the parts you like the most about it? And in the meantime, I will be commenting on some of the things that I really like about what she's doing here. If you can, you know, you can clearly see how she started, you know, creating certain features, certain shapes, and using those shapes and features in all the letters. So if you look at the D and the B, you can clearly see that, you know, the back of the B and the back of the D are very related in shape, right? So these are basically, you know, two shapes that have a lot to do, and she's using them for constructing different letters. So you can also find the same in the back of the G, and you can find the same in the L and in the P, right? So, and you can also find it in the H. So she created one shape and then sort of applied it to the rest of the letter. And she didn't actually copy and paste that shape and you know, just applied it in the back of the H or in the ascender of the D or in the descender of the B. She actually adapted this to each one of the letters. So if you look at how the ascender in the B looks, it's rather different on how the ascender of the D looks, right? And it's very different on how the descender of the G looks. It's just, she's using that idea and she's adapting it to the different shapes, right? So to the P, the J, the H, the B, and the D, and the L right here, right? So let me see on the chat if you are, if there's any comments on her project. Okay, so feel free to comment on her project. I will be picking up those comments and trying to draw them right here. So another thing I like to look at when I'm working on an alphabet is to look at the mother shape. So if you look at the S and the O, you can see that those shapes are very related, you know, like you can see that the O and the P right here, they share shapes, the G as well, the C, the D, right? So these are all sort of friends, right? So these shapes are kind of related in shape and you can design them all together. So I'm not sure right now if you can actually see me. Can you tell me if they are actually seeing me? It's all good? Yeah? Okay, so because I cannot see the chat, so I'm gonna try to access the chat on my phone so I can see your comments because I'm missing on the comments, and this is all I want to okay, so this is me. Okay, here we are. So I'm missing on your comments. I actually, okay. Do you mind zooming in so we can see it typed out? Okay. So I hope you can see this properly. I hope you can see it in a good size, right? So I was speaking about the mother shapes, right? So I was speaking about the O and how that relates to the B, the C, the G, the D. So those shapes, once you have an O, you have a lot of information to design all of the other shapes, right? So you can, from the O, take that rounded shape or that rounded curve and use it on the P, right? And you can apply it to the D, you can apply it to the C as well. As well, you can use it to build other letters, but this is a tricky one because actually the S, you will normally think that, I think I mentioned this in previous lettering creeds, you would normally think that the S is actually two rounded shapes connected together, but actually the S is a diagonal with two rounded terminals. So in her case, this S actually works because she's playing, you know, she's playing the game of applying the weight at the top and at the bottom. But in a different design, following the O or taking the O to construct the S would probably be tricky, right? You will rather use another shape or a shape that has a diagonal to actually build your S. So let me move on to another project. I just wanted to mention also that, you know, she is already working on setting this, I want to show this word here. She's already working on setting words with that alphabet, which I think is a good decision. I mean, whenever you work with letters, you want to work with your letters in context, because then you start realizing things that your letter shapes might cause. So for instance, here you can very well see that the M and the N with that feature on the right, they sort of cause a spacing problem, right? So she might have to come up with some idea to sort of reduce the space that this feature here on the M and the N is taking, right? Is creating. So very good, Anna. We are going to move on to the project of Pratik from India. So let me know on the chat again, what do you think about this project? This is essentially a lettering project, but I selected this project because I find it really, really interesting, because you could actually build a typeface from this project. You could actually choose to take some of these letter shapes and turn them into a typeface, right? And she drew so many letters. You can see that she actually has all the lower cases, I guess. So she has V's and, well, W is missing, but she practically has all the letters in her alphabet. Of course, there's a lot more, like she will have to create more uppercase letters. Yeah, but essentially she has, in this design, she has all the information she needs to create an alphabet, she or he, to create an alphabet for her Pratik, to create an alphabet, right? So you can see how the I, for instance, has a lot to do with, so let me zoom in here. So you can see how the I, let's say like the stem of the I has a lot to do with the stem of the N, and how that stem has a lot to do with the stem of the Y here and the U, right? So you start seeing a lot of consistency. She created, or she has an idea, or they have an idea, and then this idea is applied in different letters, but you can recognize that this idea repeats, right? So you can see here as well. You can see that idea applied to the T, and you can see how that T has a different shape over there, right? Because the T is not like an N, essentially. It's just a different shape. But she's using, you know, in all the letters, she's using the same stroke width, you know, the same shapes. So this is the way they are creating consistency along across the lettering piece and the alphabet. So the spacing is very nice. Yes, that's true. Like the spacing is very harmonious. It's working. I personally like to have like a narrow spacing for my lettering. I tend to do very narrow spacing for the pieces of lettering I do. I think I mentioned in previous. I mention it all the time, but a good rule for finding the right spacing for your lettering piece and also for a typeface is to look at the counter shape. So the counter shape of your letters will give you a lot of information on how that space between your letter and the next one should be, right? So if you look at the inner shape of the N, you will have a lot of information on how that spacing should be. And you say that roughly the space within the letter should be similar to the space between the letters. So this is kind of like a rule of thumb for finding the right spacing for your letter shapes. So let's move on to the next project. So let me see on the chat if you have, okay, so that ST ligature is so hot. So let me see, okay, yeah, this ligature right here, this is beautiful, seriously. This is beautiful. And these are the things that I really love about lettering is that you can easily create this because you're actually, you're just drawing one set of words, one set of letters, and you can do whatever you want with them. Actually, you can connect one letter that is on another word with the letter inside another, the word that is sitting right next to it. So the only thing Cody is saying, this is so beautiful. The only thing I see is that the S in sense doesn't have the same thick ending as the rest of the swashes. Let me see. So S, oh, okay, yeah, good point. So you're mentioning here, Cody, that the stroke ending here in sense is actually very thin. It's like a hook, sort of, no? Right? You sort of miss that kind of brushy kind of stroke ending right there. That's a good point. I think Pratik, you would definitely want to include that, I think, in that swash. So Joke is saying the slant is so consistent, it's amazing. Yeah, I agree. I love the flourishing. Maybe making two sentences would be more clear. That's what I guess you're saying. So maybe turning this into two sentences will make it, maybe making two sentences more clear. Well, I didn't get that exactly. So Derek is saying that script scared the living daylights out of me. Bravo for this piece. Yeah, really good. And what I love, what I love about a Flourish lettering piece can be very tricky because as you start adding a flourish here, you need to start adding a flourish there, and you need to start adding a flourish here. And then, you need to sort of balance your composition. Once you add one flourish, you will need to add flourishes here on the right and here on the left. So I think this is a great work in terms of balancing out the composition, finding a shape to that lettering, right? So this is sort of like a really nice stamp where all the sides are sort of balanced out, right? So this is the hot piece of the day. By now, there's a lot of comments on this one. Two sentences. Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna move forward because we have two more projects here to talk about. We have the project of Jamie. So Jamie, we know each other already. I selected your project because I think is a great example. So Jamie has been working with lettering. I know her work. She has been taking my lettering seminars, so I know what she's been doing. She has been working with lettering, and I think it's really interesting how Jamie is trying to transition into type design, or she's trying to sort of work with type design so that she can have a broader understanding of typography. And what I love about the work that she's doing now is that she's taking calligraphic imprints. So she's taking something that she did with markers. I can see markers right there, right? So she's taking something that she wrote with markers. So this is writing, right? And she's taking that into, or she's translating those shapes into an alphabet. And I really love how she is keeping sort of like the features of that handwriting, or the features of a marker drawing strokes. So she has here, for instance, in the D, she has one stroke, and you can clearly see the other stroke, right? Kind of overlapping and kind of like having this little hinge there. So, and she's doing a great job at translating that into a consistent alphabet. So you can see that showing up consistently in her rounded shapes, which is already what we've been talking about before, which is like when working in lettering, or when working in a type project, or when working on an alphabet, always try to find the mother shapes. So always try to, if you have rounded shapes like the B, the O. So let me just clarify shortly what I mean about this. So you have the O, which is kind of like the king or the queen of the rounded shapes. You have also the H, which is the king or the queen of the squarish shapes, and you have the A, which is the king of, or the queen of the triangular shapes, right? So this is essentially, okay, my O is too small, but these are essentially the three mother shapes that you find in the alphabet. And once you identify your mother shapes, you can then start seeing that the C, the G, the Q are already belonging to this group. You can also find other shapes here, the L, the E, the T, right? And with the A, you can find the V, the W. So you sort of start isolating shapes or letters because of their nature or their mother shape, right? I hope I clarified this properly, but I wanted to give you like a very brief introduction of what these mother shapes are, so we can speak about Jamie's project. So what she's doing is she's just, isolating or grouping her letters by shape. And you can see that the shapes that are rounded sort of share the same features. So you can see here the G is very similar to the C, right? And you can see, for instance, this feature on the D. You can see it applied on the P and on the B right here. So the P and the B, right? So this is the way you start achieving consistency, right? And the same happens with, for instance, letters that have a diagonal, like the X and the K, right? So you can very well see how that cut under in the X is also replicating here in the K, right? Let me see if I can find something like this somewhere, but I'm gonna go on the chat. So someone is referring to, yeah, so sorry, you're referring to Rudolf Koch and Neuland. Totally. I think this has a lot to do with that. And she's using markers for this. So you can go ahead and research a little bit about this calligraphic style from Rudolf Koch called Neuland, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not switching words and people around. But I always think that, you know, calligraphy is always a very good starting point for creating letter shapes and for coming up with concepts for a font or a lettering piece. So I want to go back to the chat. I love this piece, says Joke. It's a bold alphabet, very cool, I agree. Totally. So just to finish with this project, finish giving a little bit of feedback to Jamie's project, I'm gonna continue reading also your comments on the chat, but I wanted to mention something that I find really interesting of the way she also translated her shapes, her calligraphic shapes into a digital drawing, which essentially is what she has right here, right? And oftentimes when you're translating calligraphy into digital drawing, so oftentimes what you will do is to normalize things. So you will start, you know, instead of having a stroke or a calligraphic stroke, you will start using simple shapes, like you will start drawing, you know, the stem of a letter with a rectangle. You will start using the tool of a circle or a perfect circle to draw your O. And this is where, you know, this is where you start actually missing all the things you found on your calligraphy, right? All the things that make it very special because it's your hand writing on the paper. So I think what she did a great job here, what I wanted to mention is that she, if you look at if you focus on the H and you look at the stem of the strokes and the stems of the letters, you see that they are not perfectly square. They have some sort of, this has a name, it's not in my head right now, but they have some sort of curve to them, right? And this is what makes, you know, it's sort of, in a digital drawing, imitates the idea or replicates the idea of, you know, the pencil or the marker sort of doing its first touch to the paper and then releasing a little bit the pressure and then pressing again to finish that stroke, you know? I'm not sure I clarified this properly, but always when you're writing, there's certain, you know, there's a certain development of the pressure of the pen, which is very invisible, but in the way she did it here, she sort of translated some of that calligraphic feeling into a digital drawing. So extra points for that, Jamie. Let me just go back to the chat. So Brenna says, I love this alphabet. Would be great for headers. I agree. I would love to see this in a magazine or in a magazine headline. So Derek is saying, yes, I love the small notches at the junctions of the rounds to the verticals. Totally. This is a very, very nice detail. Okay. Cody is saying something about the S. Let me focus on this. I feel like the S angles at the endings should match the same angles at the top of the G, so they feel more uniform. So, yeah, good point there. So what Derek is saying is that the G here has a different angle than the S here, right? Which actually implies that the person who wrote this on one letter positioned the marker like this, right? So in the S, Jamie positioned the marker like this, and in the G, she positioned the marker like that, right? So that she could write that G. So I think it's a good suggestion. I think it's something you could explore, Jamie, to see whether by changing the, the shape of or the position of your marker, you can get an S that is less sharp, right? Because I think that's the reason why Derek is mentioning this thing about the S, that the S is kind of the only shape that is like super spiky, right? All the other letters are kind of bulky, but the S right here is super spiky. So I think it's a good idea to explore how that would look if I'm trying to exercise an S here with Derek's idea. I'm creating a little bit of a monster because the pen is blowed up, but I think Jamie, you get the idea of what Derek is suggesting, right? I hope, Derek, that I translated your suggestion properly. So I love the tiny details. They add so much personality, Kelly says. Yeah, I agree. So there's so much to say about this, but all in all, you can already see that she is achieving a lot of consistency. And this is really, this is really something that you can very well exercise with type design. So when working on an alphabet, you exercise to the last detail how to achieve consistency between letters. I think the next step for this is to understand how this alphabet works in words, because then you will start seeing how these letters react when they sit next to each other, next to one another, right? So Jose Jimenez is also we are all obsession with the S, but he's saying something, has a good point here. I see that the overshoot will improve with the S. Probably, yeah, I think it might also help, yeah, changing a little bit the shape of that S might bring some more consistency to the alphabet. Okay, so last thing I would like to mention is that Q here, whenever in any shape, in any letter, whenever there is two shapes coming together, you will start facing this situation where, you have a rounded shape that is sort of coming together with a squarish shape, right? And then you have a huge black space right there, right? A black space or a very thick stroke that is nowhere else. If you look at the alphabet of Jamie, there's no other stroke that is so thick. So I could suggest a couple of solutions. One of them is to make this stroke a lot smaller. So you can do that a lot tinier. You can also make that stroke diagonal, right? Or you can also use your notches, your notches and your the things you're creating with other letters to see how that solves that issue. I don't know. I'm just sort of brainstorming here. I'm not sure that's a good solution, but still, like, that's why I think, designing letters is a lot about like trying to use some solutions you found in other letters, like for instance in the A, the B, the D, and try to use them in other letters to solve other issues, right? So give it up for Jamie and her project. I'm gonna move on to Derek's project. So Derek, is that you, the one in the chat? I guess so, right? So this is the last project we're gonna comment on. So Derek, I guess this is a typeface you're working on, right? So let me see if the blue is visible there. Maybe I should switch to another color. Let me just go for an orange or something like this. So I guess this works better. Yeah. So, so what I really like, and the reason why I selected, so this is Derek. He's on the chat. Yeah. So the reason I selected this project is because I see a clear, and I think Derek, that's why he actually posted the inspiration right next to his project, is that, you know, I always like, or personally, I'm a fan of going back in the past to look for inspiration. And I think this is a very good example of how you can use inspiration or old specimen books, old work, all in all, to sort of inform contemporary work. So this is all work that some designer did or some craft person did in the past, and this is contemporary done today. And what I think is great about using old work to create contemporary work is that there's always room for improvement. There's a lot of things, a lot of shapes that were used in the past that today we can do a lot better, and we can, or our eyes can actually, either some shapes we cannot identify anymore, or some shapes we can even like draw them better. If you look at, for instance, this inspiration here, and if you look at the R, just focus on that R there. You know, that R has so many issues. That R kind of looks like lowercase n, kind of looks like, you know, it could even look like a P, but really like that R, if you think of an R and what defines an R, you would say like, okay, my R has a straight shape. My R has a rounded shape. My R has a diagonal, right? So this is a little bit what defines the shape of an R. And what I mean defines is that, what I mean define is that it's actually has, you know, the certain features that make an R recognizable, right? So when you look at this R right here, you see actually, and if I would translate it into a simple serif shape, you see that this downstroke is actually like a straight stroke, right? So that's what I mean with room for improvement, right? Some of these shapes that he took as inspiration for the alphabet could be very well improved. And actually, you also thought that this looked a little bit quirky, so you actually created an R that looks a lot better and a lot more readable for a contemporary eye. And this is what I really find great about using all work for inspiration of, you know, to inspire new work. I personally, you know, during my studies, I spent a lot of time in libraries, not really reading, but actually going through specimen books. And, you know, if you don't know what specimen books are, just Google it. You will find a lot of specimen books. You know, you can go and look for vernacular signs, right? This is really great. These are really great sources of inspiration. So let's go ahead. I wanted to make some comments about inspiration and what Derek is using for his, I'm drinking water now. So for his project, let's go ahead and try to give some comments to his work. So there's a lot of consistency here. You can see that he took some of the ideas. So let me see if there's an H here. No, but he took some of the ideas of these letter shapes. You know, this flare at the bottom of the letters. So this idea he actually used all across the letter shapes. You can see it show up everywhere consistently. And what I find interesting is that you have a serif right here, right? So you have this shape for a serif, for a vertical stem. But then once you find this idea, you need to come up with ideas to make it work in a shape like the E, where there's no straight stem. Well, you have the back of the E, of course, but these are horizontal stems. So how do you make this idea for a serif, right? This idea for a serif work for an E, or for a diagonal stem, a horizontal stem, right? So my only question when I look at this and this E is what can we do with this E, with the middle stroke of the E, right? Can this also be, can this also use some of that idea, right? Or can it even be longer? Because if you look at the E, right, this is the only stem that is actually straight, like without any flare on the stroke ending. So my suggestion would be like considering what you can do with that middle stroke. So I'm gonna go on the chat to see your comments. So it's looking good. So Stevie is saying, I would recommend aligning everything straight on the left. The angle isn't quite dramatic enough to sell it for me. Okay, okay. So she's speaking about the layout. Good. So thank you, Stevie. Yeah, this is something you can totally do. So Jamie is saying, I love the flare serifs, especially on the R. Totally, yeah. On the W bottom, it looks a little heavy. So yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, this is a good point. And I actually mentioned this in the previous project. So when you have two thick strokes, or when you have two strokes coming together, and then you don't, like you put them right next to each other, what you will get there is just a huge, thick stroke right there. So a huge, thick area right there, right? So to avoid this, what you can do is either overlap those. Actually, I think that would be the solution, to actually overlap those and make one of them thinner, right? So they will still be, they will still be, you will still have this idea of, using a low contrast, or creating a low contrast letter shape, but one of your shapes will have a little bit less weight, so that you can actually have a thinner stroke right there in the overlapping of those shapes. So, okay, let me go back to the chat. So there's a lot of back and forth in the chat right now, which is great. So Simone says, pretty awesome work, Derek. I can see what you're writing now. Okay, good. I hope, okay, you can see it now. Okay, good. So one thing I wanted to mention, which you are already doing here, whatever I was mentioning before about the contrast here, actually, Derek, you're doing it in your O. In your O, in order to make it look kind of sans serif, or sorry, not sans serif, sans contrast. So in order to make it look low contrast, so Derek is making the horizontal stems, or the horizontal part of the O, thinner than the vertical part of the O. So he can optically compensate that and make, make the the O looks kind of low contrast. So this contrast difference in the O should definitely appear on the rest of the letters. So you will probably want to see it on the, well, you can see it on the C, but you will definitely want to see it on the W, perhaps also on the L. I think you're actually using it on the L, so your horizontal stem is thinner than the vertical stem. So you will want to see that everywhere. The same happens here with that shape, right? So one last comment I have for you, Derek, is that whenever, you know, the overlappings, the intersections are always tricky. I mean, you will always have to, you know, go back, you know, lean back and try to look at your shapes again. Whenever they are having an overlapping, there's always a problem. So one thing I can tell you is that whenever you're working with, well, in the K, you know, in the K, you have a lot of overlappings. You have the vertical stem, the diagonal, the downstroke of the K. So whenever you're working with overlappings, try to have, you know, try to have the single stroke recognizables. Let me try to explain this. So try to sort of, you know, even in your digital drawing, I think this could be helpful. Try to draw every single shape separately so that, you know, if you draw every single shape separately, you will have here, so the vertical stem, then you will have the diagonal, and then you will have the downstroke. So that what I mean by that is that you will have some sort of like sharp edge right there. Oh my God, my pen, the stroke of my pen is too thick for this. Let me just show you. So what I mean is that, you know, right there, you need some sort of sharp edge so that you can recognize those different strokes, right? So whenever you are having overlappings in your letters, try to draw each one of the shapes separately so that, you know, you still have those sharp edges that make, you know, that separate each one of the strokes. Like, for instance, what is happening here on the R, you can recognize that this is a downstroke because there is this kind of edge right there. I don't know if that makes sense, but my advice is always try to draw individual strokes. Even you know, when you're working with Roman typography, this kind of typography, these kind of letter shapes, try to work with the individual stroke, with the separate stroke, so that you can also do adjustments, right? So I'm gonna read on the chat the last comments, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. So Stevie is saying, agreed about the K. It's funky in a way that's fun, but not in line with the rest of the treatment. Yeah. Yeah, so Derek, you see it also. I completely see the K being a little too funky. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's something there. Let me just deactivate. There's something here, right? Like you can, oh, sorry. You can totally see that there's something right there at the bottom. So I think you will get it right after a few iterations. So again, give it up for Derek. I think you're doing a great job there. And when you look at the inspiration, you can see that there's something, or there's some ideas he took from this photograph, but not necessarily he didn't translate the shapes, you know, one-to-one, right? He actually, he made a lot of things a lot more consistent. The width of the letters. Watch out, the width of the D right there is getting a little bit too wide, but the width of the letters are, you know, getting more consistent. Whereas, you know, here, if you look at the word organs, you know, the S is so narrow, the N is so narrow in comparison with the A. It's just, you know, if we could go back in time, we would go there and just stretch that is, right? So this this is all for today. Oh my God, we have been like an hour, a good hour. I just want to tell you something, that Letter & Co, which is the course, the course in display type that we are launching soon, is it's going to be open for registration on the 4th of September, right? I'm trying to stop sharing the screen right now. So this is me again. Yeah, so Letter & Co, you can go to the website, letterandco.com, is the course in display type that I will be teaching with 8 other instructors. We will be teaching a very comprehensive course that will walk you through the process of creating a typeface, from what we actually did today, which is like looking at your shapes, expanding that into an alphabet, and then, making it work in a font editor, all that comes with creating fonts, right? So I just wanted to let you know that it's going to be open for registration on the 4th of September. It's a multi-week course. It's going to last 5 weeks. You can do it at your own pace, but you can also follow, our calendar and join the live sessions and the live Q&As and the live type creeds. So go check it out and subscribe to the newsletter, because I'm going to let you know when the registration is open. For the rest, thank you so much for being there. It's been such a blast to give feedback to this project. I'm gonna make a post, and I'm gonna feature these projects on my feed. And have a great weekend, everyone. Bye bye.